Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories and our first story of the day is by SaulTink. It's a safety issue. I work at a paint factory where we make batches of around 5,000 pounds, sometimes more. We have to use forklifts in order to lift the large tanks that we make it in order to package it. I got my forklift license a couple of years ago and have performed nearly every forklift task that we have to do, hundreds of times. There are only 2 out of 12 workers without their forklift licenses at the plant, and those 2 are being trained. About a year ago, we created our safety committee, and I am the member for the back of the warehouse, where we make and package the paint and where most of the workers are. We look out for any safety concerns, and if someone else has a concern or needs to make a report, we deal with that. We also do monthly and annual inspections of the premises. So our lead hand treats everybody like absolute garbage, and the boss does nothing about his behavior, his attitude, or the mistakes that he makes because they have known each other for over 30 years, including the job they worked at before here. They have been here for around 20 years. We are about to start packaging an oil-based paint into 5-gallon pails, like we always do. I lift up the forklift with a tank so that we can get a filter on it, and then once the others are out of the way, I start going up more so that I can line it up with a trough, like I have done a few hundred times with no issue. This time, however, I had put a bit too much pressure on the gas pedal and the tank went up too fast, so I stopped it before it got too high. Doing so, however, is also dangerous because it is about 6,000 pounds of weight up in the air above workers. Stopping it too fast could tip over the forklift and the tank of paint, causing possible heavy damage and possibly injuring someone. Going too high could also have the same result. So I slowed it and let it sit for a moment just to make sure everything was stable. The tank was not too high, the forklift didn't tilt, wobble, or make any bad sounds, and everything was perfectly fine. Lead hand backs up with his forklift in the other room and sees me checking it and begins to chew me out. I'm used to this, as are most of the other coworkers, because he will yell and scream and get pissed off at anybody who does anything even minutely wrong or in a different way than what he has done for 20 years. He repeats himself multiple times, telling me why it is unsafe, which I had already acknowledged, and stated that I realized what I had done and what negative effects it could have had. He goes back to the other side and then comes over once more to repeat it a few more times. All I can say is I am well aware as I continue getting everything ready for packaging. He takes this personally as if I killed his dog, goes to the boss and tells him the forklift's back tires were lifted off the ground and that we had to stabilize it, otherwise it would have fallen. The other 2 members of the safety committee start an investigation, talking to the guys that were there. Only one had seen what happened and he stated that everything was fine and that we didn't need to stabilize, nor did the tires lift off. A week later, we start getting the packages ready, and I get on the forklift to get it prepared. Lead hand comes running over saying that it's a safety issue and that he is driving. I tell him I'm more than capable, and his response is that he needs me, not the 3 other guys standing there who normally do it, to guide him forward. I just go along with it until after the packaging is done. And then I say to him that because he stated that it is a safety issue, I'll need to bring it up with the other committee members so that they can start an investigation on how to mitigate the safety issue and make it more safe, as is my job whenever someone has a safety concern or issue. His response is aggressive at first, telling me he doesn't care, that it's already done, go ahead, etc. Until he tells me that the boss told lead hand that he was to be the only one lifting up tanks from now on. I tell him that's fine, but I still need to bring it up with the committee since he stated it was a safety issue, and he just grumbled and walked away. Since then, anytime we have a tank to lift, anywhere from full to empty, I stand there and wait for him to come and do it. Sometimes telling him to come and do it, and whenever he tells me to do it, I just repeat what he said about the boss stating that lead hand is the only one allowed to do so, and continuing to wait until he does it. This is an ongoing thing still, and it will be for a very long time, unless we are told otherwise by the boss. So if you had this boss that was over panicking and all this kind of stuff and trying to paint you as a safety issue and said that one time that they were to only be the one doing it forever, would you be the kind of person to make sure to drive that point every single time and refuse outright because it's a safety issue? I think I probably would, because that would annoy me to no end being told that I'm a safety issue, so I would kind of want to annoy them in return. Let me know if you would in the comments down below. Our next story is by errihu. Sure, I'll pull up that data for you. Or how to score an upgraded workstation. This was around a decade ago. I had a new minted master's degree and a brand new position in a third-party market research and program evaluation company, doing a lot of work for local government agencies. Even though I was an analyst, I was given one of the oldest workstations in the office, a Pentium 3 with 256 megabytes of memory. This was the end of the 2000s, mind you. Most systems were being built with gigs of memory at that point. It was slow as freak, taking minutes to open Office documents. I think some of the RAM was bad because it had a tendency to just reset itself when it ran out of resources. Since my work always involved having multiple documents and tabs open, and sometimes resource-intensive statistic programs, it crashed a lot and getting anything done was a pain in the butt. I wasn't the only one. Several of the assistant analysts also had decrepit relics of the late 90s in their nooks. They didn't have actual offices, just nooks. At least there wasn't cubicles. We complained about the state of the computers, but since we were a branch office of the company, we pretty much got ignored. We could still do the work, right? Head office didn't like spending money. This place considered itself a small business, and small businesses always skimp on the IT. We could get most of our work done, it was just laggy and slow and occasionally resulted in rework because of crashed systems. They were going to use those relics until they died. Well, at one point, me and one of the assistants got put on a major project. For us, working with one of the managers from the main office several provinces away. It was a continuation study, something that was run once every couple of years or so. And in the weeks leading up to rolling out the current version of the survey, we had to crawl through the datasets of years gone by, using Excel. There were over 6,000 records. I know that's a small dataset for some, but for our company, which usually had datasets under 500 or qualitative data, that was huge. And the survey had a lot of iterative fields, so it was a massive file. We'd been complaining about the computers for months, at this point, only to have everything fall on deaf ears. Our manager would keep asking for specific polls and queries from the dataset, and we'd do our best to fill them, but it was a pain in the butt because it would take 5 to 10 minutes, usually to just get one field in the data. He was starting to complain about our lazy butts and how long it took to get info. The assistant and I both wanted to work and wanted to be more productive, but our wings were well and truly clipped by these garbage computers. So we decided on some malicious compliance. At one point, the manager asked us for some simple pieces of data. So we divided up the task and then set our computers to sorting the data sets. This particular sort would take our computers about 30 minutes. We set up the sort and filter criteria and then let it run. Then we went over to a local coffee shop, got some confectionery excuses for coffee and baked goods, and took an unscheduled break. We literally could not do any other task for any other project while that occurred. Computers were literally unusable, and all our current work was on the computer. So we chilled, finished our coffees, and kvetched about the workstations. Both of us were geeks who had decent homebrew gaming systems at home. We knew these things were about 7 years out of date and not up to what we were doing with them. And also how a real system should respond to an Excel sort, not that long. We then went back, saw that our files were still sorting, and proceeded to chill in my office talking about anime. Then I got a call. It was the manager. He was wondering why we hadn't gotten him that simple data request yet and why we weren't responding to emails. I don't remember the exact conversation. This was more than a decade ago, but it went something like this. "I've been emailing you, why haven't you responded?" "Oh, sorry, we've been running that sort you requested. I took half and assistant took the other half, and we're both trying to get it. We can't access your emails until the sort is done because our computers won't respond."
"But that should have been done ages ago. Why is it still running?"
"Well, the computers just don't have the resources to sort that many data fields. I've got 256 megabytes of RAM and I think it's a Pentium 3. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone. The manager also knew a thing or two about computers.
"What?"
"Yeah," my assistant piped in. We were on speakerphone. "These things are older than God. It usually takes 5 to 10 minutes to get your data. That's why we're so slow getting back to you. We thought we'd make things faster and split the search up between 2 of us, but it's been 20 minutes and the progress bar is still like only 70%. I piped up, "Hopefully the RAM fault doesn't kick in and reset my computer. I hate it when I have to redo a query. I've closed all other programs except Excel until it finishes, but it's a little iffy." Our manager was silent again. Then he told us to send them the information when we could and he'd get back to us. On Friday that week, we came into the office to find boxes of computer stuff being set up in our offices, and one of the local managers saying, "Hey OP and assistant, you guys are getting new computers. Head office had them purchased and sent them down." It was only me and the assistant. I guess the head office manager had pulled some strings and demanded that we have IT equipment that was capable of doing the work we'd been assigned. Eventually, the others in the office got upgrades because the company realized they were not saving themselves any money when people they paid $200 a day were spending half the day waiting for computers to respond or redoing work lost from crashed systems. The assistant and I went on to really nail the project with fast response times and good work. The difference in productivity with the new systems was immense. And now I had a computer that could even have other programs open at the same time, including my favorite radio station, Score. By the late 2000s, I didn't even have a high-end computer and I had 4 gigabytes of RAM in my computer. For anybody that doesn't know, 4 gigabytes of RAM is 16 times the 256 megabytes OP had to deal with. 16 times. That tells you how outdated it was for that era. This next story is by Stargazerslight. I wasn't doing the stalking well enough, so I fixed it. In 2010, I was working night shift at the nursing home where I lived as a nursing assistant, training to become a certified nursing assistant. One of the night shift's duties were to stock all of the residents' bathrooms with anything the day shift might need during the day, and night shift was pretty good at it. Things stayed stocked and day shift never ran out. Well, about 6 months in, night shift had a week-long period where we had 1 or 2 people pass away on the night shift, and that takes the whole staff, and we really can't deviate from tasks for non-menial tasks like stalking and put those above the care of the family of the loved ones that pass and the other residents in the facility. After a week of not being able to stalk the way we liked, the complaints started pouring in the communication book that night shift wasn't doing our job. The charge nurse tried hard to have our back, but we were all still reprimanded. Finally, things came to a boil when after another really hard night, one of the day shifts started screaming at me in front of everyone and placed all of the blame on me. The director of nursing, DON, pulled me aside and helped me calm down. I was tired and lost someone that I really cared about that night. It's not just the families that loses a loved one when residents pass away. The director of nursing helped me calm down and suggested I take the night off since I don't sleep well during the day and had already been working 6 days. I told her, no, I want to make sure that everyone knows how hard I work even when it doesn't look like it, and I made a plan. That next night, after we got our nightly information about the happenings of the day, I told the other CNA that I would be doing their stalking as well as my own. Puzzled but willing to hand off work, they complied. We had 2 really big carts that I stocked so high, I was picking up supplies as I was going down halls to each room. The pens, robes, toothbrushes, toilet paper, mouth swabs, chucks, bed sheets, blankets, wipes, anything that was needed, I was stocked and then stocked again. I stocked them so well in rooms that rooms never ran out. Sometimes the stacks would get so high, they threatened to fall. The cupboards literally had stuff falling on day shift, I stocked them so well. After a couple of months, the complaints started coming in that day shift couldn't do their job well enough because they were spending too much time cleaning up stuff falling on top of them. Again, I was screamed at about not doing my job right and making it more difficult for day shift to do theirs. The whole time, I'm being screamed at by a nasty man with a bad haircut. The director of nursing and administrative director were in the office behind him and could hear everything. I looked at his stone-faced and said, "Wasn't it you who just a couple of months ago complained we weren't stocking well enough and inhibiting day shift's ability to do their job?" All of a sudden, I heard laughter coming from the office and he was pulled in and written up for harassment and bullying, which is a no tolerance in my facility. It became a regular way night shift stocked rooms, and from what I understand, even though I don't work there anymore, still is. I think OP went a little over the top on their malicious compliance here, but I also think the guy complaining was just a big whiner and was constantly looking for things to complain about anyways. And our final story of the day is by ILoveDouglasAdams. I have to make my own special Thanksgiving meal? Oh, it'll be special all right. With the holiday season coming up, I've been thinking about past years. My family and I differ in a lot of ways, but I especially differ from my mother. Ever since I was little, we couldn't see eye to eye. She's the type of person who prioritizes looking good in social settings, whereas I'm the type to not give a flying dolphin. She has expressed deep shame in who I am, and I have lost track of how many times she angrily asked, "Why can't you be normal?" As I've grown into an adult, I found ways to understand her and try to keep peace. We learned we have a few things in common, like places to go, preferred scents and perfumes, and most surprisingly, a fondness for weed. She tends to hide that last fact. Now, one of the things my mom has been very bad about is tolerating that I'm vegan. I started as a teenager, but my mom wanted no part of it. She immediately stopped cooking anything for me, including plain side veggies that she would normally cook for everyone. Whatever, I learned to cook. Whenever family get-togethers happen, such as during holidays, birthdays, or any other event, my mom and her family deliberately offered nothing for me. I would have to bring my own food or go hungry. Again, whatever. With their attitude, I don't think I'd trust anything they offered me anyway. One year, my parents were hosting Thanksgiving. As per usual, I expected to make my own mini Thanksgiving meal, while she and my dad prepared the real Thanksgiving meal. Now, normally I prepare a veggie roast, gravy, several sides, and a dessert. I make more than enough, and always place my stuff on the same table with the rest of the food in case anyone wants any. Every year before, nobody else wanted anything. Weeks before the holiday, my mom did her annual tradition of reminding me to make my own food because she won't make anything for me. I already had recipes lined up and, until she said something, was feeling pretty stoked about what I had planned. Her unnecessary reminder only served to piss me off. I made a new, more maliciously compliant plan. Fast forward to Thanksgiving, it's going pretty normal. Annoying relatives, loud TV blaring, my parents and I trying yet again to somehow share the oven. Just before the meal was to begin, some last-minute guests arrived. 2 of my dad's cousins had traveled a few hours to get here. I barely knew them, but that was about to change. Shortly after, we were bonding up a storm. We had some overlapping interests, agreed on politics, and they wanted to try my food. Sure, but I had to warn them, the gravy is a bit special. See, what my mom doesn't know is that when she reminded me to cook, it actually reminded me that I had made some canna butter using vegetable oil just the other day. I figured, screw it. If nobody's going to eat any of my food anyway, I might as well get high off it. So I looked into vegan gravy recipes and used my special oil. When I explained the situation to my new favorite relatives, they thought it was hilarious. They also immediately wanted to try my gravy. We ended up chilling around the fire, laughing like old best friends. They promised to never tell anyone what I did. We now look forward to seeing each other every year. I haven't added any special ingredients to my big meals since then, but they still make space on their plates to try everything I make. Well, at least somebody in this family wants to be family and be kind to one another. What does it matter if anyone's vegan? You can make your own food, that's completely fine and acceptable. But what's with the lack of tolerance? What's with the trying to shame them for it? It's a choice they made, you should just support them. It's not a bad decision. It's nothing illegal or shameful. I'm glad they have the cousins because that makes things way more special. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you had a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe if you haven't. Also, please consider turning on notifications so you'll never miss an upcoming video too. No matter what you did, whether it was viewing the video, liking, commenting, subscribing, thank you all so very much for supporting the Storytime channel. Every little thing that you guys do helps the channel grow more and more every single day, and I appreciate the heck out of it. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you all next time right here.